I want to give an invitation to us all. Don't wait to live with intention. Don't wait to prioritize those who you love. Because when it comes to prioritizing that and who is most important in our life, there really is no time like the present. And actually, we can make every single chapter in this life count. Hey, I'm Tanya Wilkinson, and this is Death on the Daily, bringing the conversation about death out of the shadows and into the mainstream. Because along with birth and change, if there's one thing that's going to happen to us all, then death is it. And we're going to explore how death actually shows up for us on the daily in a multitude of ways, and how when we allow ourselves to accept and to be with death, how it can teach us a whole heap about how to live this life well. So welcome to this solo episode of Death on the Daily, and today I'm rooting us into palliative care and what palliative care can teach every single one of us about how we can live this life now well. And I'm inspired to talk about this because of my last conversation on this podcast with Dan Ariely, who is Professor of Psychology and Behavioral Economics at Duke University. And Dan was speaking about palliative care, and I really loved his framing of it. So I'm going to let him speak his own words to you.
You know, there's the term palliative care. I think it comes from the term of wrapping people like a blanket around them. And the reality is that most of life is palliative care. I'm sitting here, it's Friday, 6 p.m., I have a glass of wine. Palliative care is about having a conversation with somebody you care about and like.
And I really, really love this perspective because Dan's not wrong. You know, when we look at what palliative care is, it's really focused on quality of life. And who of us wouldn't want to have, optimal quality of life right now? But actually when, I connect into, and particularly this was me all the way through my corporate, when I was feeling disconnected, I was feeling out of alignment, there would be times where I kind of think, well, I'm sort of stuck in this, till retirement. And I wouldn't take sort of, I suppose, control around, okay, what can I do in the now to prioritize that which is most important to me? Where do I need to bring boundaries in? Where do I need to really focus in and prioritize my family and my friends or, the hobbies that I love? And I think so many of us can kind of be in this sort of like disconnected treadmill through life, where actually what I love about palliative care is, it really, really is about let's look holistically, let's look at all of the factors and see where we can just make life better with that care and support. And Dan mentioned the origin of the term palliative care and it being like that cover, that blanket, that wrap around the human at the center of a difficult medical journey. And the term palliative care actually comes from the Latin word palliare, which means to cloak or to cover. So that is that wrapper around. And what this really reflects is that team that will be there to wrap around the patient and actually, I'm not going to use the term patient. I'm going to use the term human because as Dan shared, particularly when we're going through these really difficult journeys with diagnoses, we can often kind of that label of patient can take us away from living life. So that wrapper goes around that human, and their family in the center. It's a wrapper of comfort. It's a wrapper of support and obviously expertise to help, that human and their loved ones to navigate this forwards path. And palliative care, when we look at it in the medical sort of system, obviously, there's experts within that team who are focused, the doctors and the medical teams on relieving the symptoms, reducing pain, as well as looking to, the emotional side and the mental health side. Plus, really, I suppose, centering that which is most important to that human, whether it's, from the perspective of what is going to make the most meaning and purpose and bring them the most joy, how do family need to be prioritized? What spiritual beliefs and, other needs need to be prioritized? And I love this because what I can really connect into is, I suppose, my fear that I've held around kind of the medical systems is obviously, there is a perspective of you go into hospital and, you're sort of almost in this conveyor belt and there's a real, for me, my fear is around losing that control. So it brings me a lot of heart to know that obviously, when it comes to palliative care, and also obviously in other medical spaces, there is a lot of care and support. But it brings me a lot of warmth and heart to know that within that palliative care sort of wrapper, that there is that real, I suppose, understanding of you, your inner world, as well as your ecosystem. What is the world for you and what is most important? And I've actually held quite a few misconceptions in the past about palliative care. And I remember when my granddad was in his final week. And for me, actually, at that time, I thought that was palliative care. I didn't understand that actually palliative care goes much broader than that. So let's talk about a few of these misconceptions about palliative care and actually what it is. So the first misconception is that palliative care is only for the dying, when actually palliative care is something that, could be an option for anyone who's facing a serious illness at any stage. And I've heard many, many stories. I've actually, heard in other podcasts, people talking about that sort of moment where they or a loved one have been navigating a journey and, a doctor has said, oh, maybe now's a good time to consider palliative care. And that sort of moment of, oh my goodness, but, do you think I'm dying? Do you think I'm at the end stage? But that is not what palliative care is. It can come in at any stage. Secondly, that palliative care is just about pain management. This is another one that I definitely thought. I basically thought palliative care was, sort of the morphine and other sort of pain relief and sedatives, I guess. I'm not really sure sort of what was sort of given to my granddad in his period of, the final bit of dying. But I thought that palliative care was basically that. It was, the nurse that would come in to sort of support and administer through this medication. And obviously, managing physical pain is a part of it, but actually palliative care addresses so much more, as we've spoken to just now. And really what it's about is that holistic approach to care. It's about focusing on that person, on their families, and not looking sort of just at the illness. The next misconception about palliative care is that it means that you're giving up hope. I'm here to say that that is not the case. And actually palliative care being rooted in how you can live this chapter of life well, whether it's your final chapter or whether it's a chapter as you navigate this illness. For me, that's really, really empowering about actually how can we improve, your quality of life on your terms as you're navigating this illness. And obviously palliative care will always be a really, really personal choice. And, I just sort of really want to raise the conversation about this because, I can really connect into, and again, this is from my previous misconceptions about it and about the fact that it's just for that final, maybe 2 weeks in life. But actually, because it is so much broader than that. And that empowerment really, really is about, I choose to live this life now well. And I choose to have these conversations, both with those who I love in my family, as well as obviously with the professionals who can really, really support in, making things happen as you journey through that medical system. And so from these misconceptions, I now want to come to some lessons that I've really integrated from palliative care on how we can live life well now. So firstly, define what matters the most to you in this life. And this is obviously something that becomes real laser focused on those chapters, when someone does have a terminal illness. Typically we do hear that, and it's exactly what Dan was talking about, that there becomes that real sharp focus of, who do I want to spend time with? Who do I want to prioritize? What do I want to prioritize? What do I, as Dan shared, what do I want to complete before I exit this planet? Is there a book that I want to write or something else? We don't have to wait until then. We can define what matters most to us in this life now. So my invitation to you is take time to reflect upon what is most important to you in life. What do you need to prioritize? And actually, what do you need to deprioritize as well? What feels out of alignment? It's something that you can do in a journaling practice or, as for example, I go on lots of dog walks and I'm always thinking and sort of just, I suppose, scanning around in my world, in my life to just understand, does everything feel in flow? Does it feel like it's bringing me joy, meaning and purpose? Or other aspects where actually I feel like I'm out of alignment. It doesn't feel comfortable to me, or it doesn't feel like it really sort of fills me up. What are my let goes as well? Second up, we've got rooting into the simple things that matter. So palliative care really does teach us how to prioritize just the simple basics of human connection, of human care, of human support, as well as, prioritizing those simple and meaningful moments in life. So how can you invite more presence, more connection, more joy into your life? What are the simple moments that perhaps you're overlooking? Even little things like, I don't know, meal times with your family, or I don't know, going and seeing your friends, maybe for something that you do once a week. Like, I'm a little bit of a hermit now, but I remember, going out on a Friday night, or those sort of the brunch dates on the weekends. But I can also connect into the fact that for a lot of them, because I was just sort of like whirring through this life on kind of disconnected autopilot, I wasn't very present, and I definitely wasn't making the memories that I wanted to. And third up, we've got to have the courage to have those hard conversations. And palliative care obviously doesn't shy away from those difficult conversations. And that, for me, really inspires me around, what are the conversations that I need to have that I've been avoiding, including those about dying and death. I speak a lot on this podcast about the importance of having these conversations. And actually, in the next episode, I have a wonderful conversation with a friend of mine. And we are talking about sort of having that conversation about dying and death with our parents, and the fact that actually both of us, we're still kind of, I suppose, on our path and gearing up to having those conversations. And I know, and I can feel it because I can feel the resistance in me. These conversations are difficult, but it's so, so important for all of us to speak about our wishes for the end of life, as well as to understand that of those who we love the most. And, again, if you want all of the reasons as to why, go check out the episode with Dan Ariely, because he talks to human stories that really emphasize this. And fourth up, we've got the importance of compassion and community. And I feel so passionately in all of my work about reconnecting us to the power of community, because actually we live in a very individualistic world, and that can have us feeling like we're sort of navigating, any difficult time in life on our own, perhaps not knowing who to reach out to. Perhaps we've got those kind of fair weather friends who only want to be sort of in it when things are good. But actually community is really, really important. So I'd say firstly, it's all about how can we lean into our community? How can we support others when they're going through difficult times? How can we just be that listening ear, just hold space and just let whatever's coming up come up without sort of putting a stop on it, like crying, like, someone who just needs to vent, or, get something off of their chest, or be sad about something, or be worried about something. Let others voice this, be there in that caring connection for them, just holding that compassionate space for them. And then obviously on the other side, it's really rooting into who is your community, and are those, connections, is there that reciprocity? And how can you really prioritize that care and connection in everything that you do, making sure that just as you give to others, as you hold space for others, so too can you receive, and can you lean on and, speak to others as and when you need. And so as we move towards the completion and the ending of this episode of Death in the Daily, I want to give an invitation to us all. Don't wait to live with intention. Don't wait to prioritize those who you love. Because when it comes to prioritizing that and who is most important in our life, there really is no time like the present. And actually, we can make every single chapter in this life count. Let's all release that kind of perspective of, oh my goodness, I have to wait until retirement, until, I don't know, I'm released from this job or this way of being to be able to truly enjoy myself. Because, the uncomfortable truth is none of us really know when we're going to take our final breath. So there's no time to live like the present. And for my note to self, which I close out every single episode with, I thought I'd share just a couple of journal prompts that I am going to be reflecting on, and, with my invitation that you can join me in journaling on these. So these journal prompts are: what does living well mean to me? And the second prompt is, if I had 6 months to live, what would I prioritize? So you can join me this week. I'm going to be reflecting on it. And if you have any thoughts around what's come up for you through that journaling, I would love to hear from you in the comments. We can have a little little chat and take your reflections and your integrations deeper. And, above all else, I hope that this episode can help you to just take that invitation to just move forwards with that intention, to not wait until that final chapter and to live this life well now. All of my gratitude to you for joining me for another Dead Conversation. Death on the Daily is edited by David Strutt. The music is Set Free by Katie Gray. And I am Tanya Wilkinson. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be over the moon if you can rate, review, and subscribe. It really, really helps me to get the word out there. And if you want to say hi or to hear more about my work as a coach and death doula, including how I support my clients to navigate their death on the daily, then all of the ways that you can connect with me are in the show notes. I'll be back soon with some more Dead Conversations. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something inside, and we'll never make it.